Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola, in studio with Jason Cross.
Hello.
Leif Johnson.
Howdy.
Joining us remotely is Mike Simon.
Hello.
And the most important man in the room is our producer, Dan Masuoka. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Roman. How's it going?
Good. So Dan keeps an eye on our Twitter and YouTube feeds for your comments and questions. So if you have anything, thoughts on today's topics, let us know in those two venues, and Dan will chime in. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Today we're going to be covering a bunch of Apple rumors. But first we're going to talk about, on the Macworld Podcast, Samsung.
Sounds like an appropriate thing to do. Yeah.
Because Samsung today had a big event. They introduced a bunch of new phones. And, you know, they compete with Apple, which is why we're covering them.
As their commercials constantly remind you.
Yeah, it's true.
So we thought we'd talk about what Samsung came out with today, what that could mean for, you know, the future of the iPhone and things like that. So, Mike, you were part of the team covering the event, were you not?
Team? Me, dude.
Who was the team?
Is there a team at
Yes.
all that?
I don't know. Does our boss John count as part?
I was going to say.
Yeah, he was at the event.
The boss was there.
He went to the event today. I was in San Francisco, but yeah, I got all the info on the new phones last week, and
Right.
there's a bunch of new stuff.
There's a bunch of new stuff. So where should we start? Well, we could start where Samsung started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
Which
that-
was amazing that Samsung does not know how to do presentations. Like who? So for the last, like, I don't know how long. Let's say 2 years, we've been waiting for this folding phone.
Yeah.
So what you do is you gradually lead into it. You come out with the S10, then the S10 Plus, then the 5G, and then the folding phone.
Yeah.
Instead, they threw it at the beginning, and the rest of it was just like, all right, when is this over?
Well, okay, remember the event where they actually announced it? They put it at the end, and it was the most boring slog.
Yeah, that little tease,
so that could
yeah.
be that somebody actually, told them that don't do that again because, oh, God.
It would have been fun. Like, they could have weaved it all in there and teased it along the way, but instead they dropped it in the first 5 minutes, and then no one cared about the stuff.
So Samsung, for people who haven't been keeping track, Samsung came out with a foldable phone. So it's essentially, I guess the best analogy you can say is if you took an iPad mini and folded it in half,
Lengthwise.
Lengthwise.
It's 7.3 inches in the front, so it's about, what's the iPad mini, 7.9, so it's pretty close.
something like that, yeah.
I think that's almost like the better way to think of it. It's like a foldable tablet, and a condensable tablet as opposed to an unfoldable smartphone. And I mean,
But it
that's
is a
the way
phone.
works.
It's
It is a
cellular
phone, but
access and
It has the
everything. It's
phone,
not.
it has what you want it to be in a phone, and when it's folded,
There is
it
a
has
screen.
a camera on the back, a camera
Right.
on the front, screen on the front, so it does phone.
A
does
very
act like
cramped screen.
I thought
a very
the
cramped. Yeah, it's only 4
yeah,
inches.
it's a cramped screen. It's very skinny. It's
Yeah.
long and skinny,
Yeah.
like a little more so than even the tall, skinny phones we have today.
Yes. Yes.
And then when opened up, it's kind of a weird aspect ratio. It's not 4:3 or
Right.
3:2.
It's
definitely not
4.3 by
16:9.
2 is
It's-
what Samsung.
it's what is it?
Samsung's 4.3 by 2.
4.3 by
official
2.
aspect ratio.
4.3 by 2.
It's not quite 2 to 1. It's weird.
It's weird.
And an awkward notch placement as well.
The notch is weird. The
Yeah, they
the
have a little
cameras
notch
are
in the
weird.
corner.
Like they have them on the back, but they're in the front. Like I no one's gotten to see this thing. No one's gotten to play with it. So we're just going on what we saw. And to me, the most intriguing stuff was the operating system and how they had 3 apps working together. Opened it up, and what was on the outside expanded to the inside. Like there's a ton of potential there.
That's a lot of neat stuff. They said they worked with Google on some of that.
Yeah.
On Google Apps. What I worry about is all the apps that aren't like the apps they don't show you and the apps that aren't optimized.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like, yes, but does Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Like
Right.
just go down the list of every app
Yeah.
on your phone. Do all of these properly fit that weird
Yeah,
aspect ratio? And everything?
Over and over again, we saw Samsung Messages, Google Maps, and like a browser. Over and over and
Yeah.
over again. And that's,
Yeah, and I think
those
they
3
showed-
apps will work great.
They
But you're
showed
right.
WeChat or something, or
They showed WeChat or WhatsApp. I think it
WhatsApp,
was.
I think, something like that. Yeah, so we know a few things will work in this weird sort of windowed mode and the weird internal aspect ratio, but
Right.
like this phone is $1,980 and up. That's the starting price.
They can not do those commercials where they talk about, oh, paying all that money for an iPhone, are you? No.
There's a 5G model too, which
Yes.
seems crazy. Like, I don't know why. Like, if you want this technology, I guess if you want it, you want everything. But
Yeah.
that's going to tack on at least another $200 to it. We're talking about $2,200 for a phone that may or may not work right.
Yeah, keep that
And
in mind.
then-
That is the starting price.
Yeah, storage
1980.
options will go up from there and stuff. So, you're going to spend all that, and then you're going to launch, who knows, Instagram or something you use all the time. Is you're going to launch it, Snapchat, and it's going to look like terrible inside.
Snap.
Or is it just going to be pillar boxes and it's going to be 16 by 9? Like
It'll probably be something like, if you remember when the iPad launched, they had that 2x mode.
yeah,
That looked like crap, but it at least filled
Right,
the
it
screen.
worked.
It'll probably have some kind of a version of that, but yeah, for that
but the
kind of
aspect
money,
ratios were the same, and that was a normal aspect
Yeah.
ratio that people
that's true.
target for stuff.
Yeah.
Like monitors had been 4:3 and stuff forever.
And I don't know
So it
anything
just
about
wasn't-
Android development, but iOS development, Apple's very rigid about
Yes.
their screen
Yeah,
ratio.
what they're pushing to now, because there's more aspect ratios.
Yeah.
There's 2 in the phones, 3 if you count
Right.
really old phones,
Yeah.
and then tablets are another one. So they're pushing toward these fluid interfaces that you could essentially resize and it
Right.
would be fine. And that's where everything's going, but not everything does that,
Yeah.
especially in things like games.
Android does that for phones, of course, but
Yeah.
on tablets, it's like the Wild West. You don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
And most of it, I mean, tablets have been around now for the better part of a decade, and Android apps, most of them are still, just not very good at that size.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how this ends up when they actually release it, and people get a chance to try their apps and see, well, how well do the things outside of those handpicked, optimized things, how do they work with this $2,000 device I just bought?
What's crazy is Samsung's running a commercial on like actual television right now that shows a folding phone that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But that's not the one they're selling. So people are going to see that commercial and say, "Oh man, that thing's so cool!" And then they're going to go to the store and say, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, that sort of future, like imagine the future kind of a
Well,
folding
why would
phone.
you come out with that commercial now?
And it's as thick as a sandwich when you fold a thing
Yeah,
over. So
it's basically like 2 Samsung S10s put together.
Yeah, you
know.
can't really put it in your pocket very easily.
So
Is it that
Cargo
thick?
pants. It's
It looks like it's about.
a little
16,
thicker than 2
17
regular
millimeters thick,
Samsung
yeah.
phones.
I mean, you could fit that in because it's thinner. You can fit that in your pocket.
because it's
Days,
narrower.
James?
Yeah, I mean, don't if you guys
As someone
if you're saying that a 10s Max can fit in your pocket, this phone can fit in your pocket.
2 of them.
2 of them.
stacked
I-
up.
Yeah, but
I
they're
would
not
have
as-
to
they're not
wonder
as
about that.
wide.
Yes.
So like,
Listen,
if,
I-
But
circumference.
they're
regular-
longer too, right? They're not as wide, but they're longer.
They are longer.
Yeah.
They're taller. I often carry
taller.
around 2 giant phones in my pocket, and it's not comfortable.
In one pocket.
In one pocket, so I have 2 often in the other pocket as well.
and you're
Don't
and
wanna
you're
get
not
in-
even wearing hipster jeans either.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If they were super tight, that's going to be.
I don't mean to
Yes.
make too much fun of it because it is a cool technical feat.
Right. Right.
Like they
I was
did-
impressed by the lack of seam. I thought there was going to be
Yes.
like a very obvious seam.
Well,
Yeah.
see, that's funny because there's been a lot of talk in the office about the seam. I
Yeah.
saw the seam multiple times during the presentation, and it's all about the camera angle and lighting.
I think it's the camera.
Yeah. So there were times.
I can see the seam in the frame, but
Yeah.
not where the display
I
part
didn't.
is.
I'll have to
Yeah.
go look at it again. I didn't see it in the display either. But even if there is one, like briefly,
Yeah. It's
we're
for an
taking a
instant.
7-inch screen and we're literally folding it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
impressive that they can do that in a consumer product that's not. Well, it's expensive, but it's not $10,000. It's
I wonder about
relatively.
longevity. I wonder about once
oh yeah,
it's,
durability for
if you
sure.
Right.
folded and unfolded this
said
thing
hundreds of
1,000
thou-
times,
They said hundreds of thousands of folds is
Yeah.
what they said on
Yeah.
stage.
yeah, we'll see.
Well, see, what I've been saying this whole time is, a lot of us carry cases and stuff, and I'm really afraid that this thing's like super fragile. I mean, well, maybe not super, but the fact is because of the design, you can't really put
No.
anything around it, and so
Because it has displays on both sides. Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
there's a case on each part. I guess you can do that.
maybe.
Like they
Weird
would make
side
one
bumpers?
that's or
Back to
They
the
made a
bumpers.
big they made a big deal out of a hinge, like it's color customizable, and it's it's Samsung is like blazoned across the side of it. Like they're real proud of that. So
So yeah,
I want to see the whole thing. I want to see how it works, and I think in 5
yes.
years, couple generations, I think it'll be really cool.
Well, see, that's the way I think of like VR and AR and stuff. It's good to see that some balls are rolling on that, and we're seeing cool stuff in that space. But as far as actually wanting it, like getting it right now, yeah, that's the way I feel about the foldable phones. So
Yeah.
I agree.
So on YouTube, there's a comment from Daniel Berman who's asking if foldable phones are just a fad, because like Xiaomi and other people have been kind of demoing prototypes for a little bit now.
Right.
So do you think that this is, we're laughing kind of at some parts of it, but is this the mark of the future and where you think it's going to go?
I mean, there must be something telling Samsung and other creators of foldable phones that people want bigger screens, right? Which is otherwise they wouldn't make the investment into that.
Right. Well, you see it in science fiction, right? You see
Westworld,
these, incredible folding things, and they're super, super thin.
Yeah.
Right. It's magic because it's special effects.
Right.
I don't think we're 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 generations away from this solving some of the inherent problems to these sorts of devices, like the problems with thickness, the problems with. You can't put anything in the hinge but a ribbon cable. Like you can't put ports or battery or anything there. So that's wasted space.
Right.
And then, there's just there's a whole bunch of issues to solve.
It needs to get to the point where it's like a laptop,
Yes.
where everything is on this side and the screen just opens up on this side. And yeah, you're right. We're pretty far away from that.
And in terms of foldable phones, is there some future? Well, yeah, at some point we'll get to these Westworld tablet things or something. We're a long way away. I think there's more of a future in a foldable tablet that is a small tablet, an iPad mini that unfolds into an iPad Pro, like a big iPad Pro.
see, that's kind of where I was going earlier.
Something that
I think
never
that's
has to
a better
go
way
in
to
your
market
pocket.
it. Yeah, it is a phone, but that's really I think like the better use of it.
But it's not. It's too small for that.
Yeah.
Is the problem in phone mode? I'm talking about something bigger than this
Right.
that goes from
Right.
small tablet to big tablet. Never has to go in your pocket. You're not worried about like port space. It's got battery space.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues with it being a phone kind of go away when you just say, "Well, it's going to be bigger than that."
I agree.
And I think the display tech the potential is huge
Yes.
for displays that are this flexible, that don't have creases and bends and don't show any kind of wear and tear. I mean, who knows what Apple can do with that?
Yeah. Or anyway, for a lot of things,
Anyway,
there's a lot of cool things you could do with.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about these. Make those Harry Potter newspapers.
Well,
seriously.
Apple gets a screen from Samsung, so
Yeah.
who knows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, LG showed a TV, a 60-inch TV that literally rolls up like a newspaper. I mean, the potential is just amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, my eyes scanned past it, but there was some kind of news about an Apple patent for a foldable phone. Like
Yeah,
last
no,
days.
there's no doubt that they're exploring this. I mean, we may or may not see it ever, but they're the biggest company in the world. They have prototypes that we couldn't even think of right now. I mean, their research and development is things. They're so far ahead of the game that what Samsung's doing, same thing. What we see is one thing. What they're doing is years ahead of this.
See, the thing, when I look at an Apple product lately, it seems, the iPad, and so it seems like they're trying to get rid of every single type of button and stuff that they can. And I agree with that because that's less breakability. Yeah, they can talk about the closing and everything else like that. But those are parts that'll wear down eventually. Those are parts that'll break. And there's less likely of a chance of that when, like, the phone or whatever it is, just one big piece. And that's what scares me about foldable devices. It's inherently more fragile.
I've seen, you look at how many shattered screens are out there. Like that's anytime, ride a bus or a train one day and just look at how many people are using phones with like totally shattered screens. They can't afford to get them replaced or whatever. And it's just like, it seems like that's the problem people want to solve or everyone's going like, give us a bigger battery. And it's like, no, $2,000 folding phone. Like, no, but a bigger battery, maybe? No, $2,000 folding phone.
No, it has two batteries that kind of work together to create.
Yeah, there's a battery in each side of it.
In the sense of that, there's some breakthrough through there, but yeah, one of these days, someone, either Apple or Samsung or someone's going to come out and say we have a 3-day battery life and it's super thin and it's not going to explode. But we're just as far away from that, I think, as we are from a folding phone. It seems.
Yeah, on the
The
one hand,
batteries have been static for a decade, really.
yeah. You see, with that, yeah, on that's the exact thing. Is on the one hand, this is a cool concept. It's good to see that there's. At the other hand, it feels like they're really, really trying to make a phone feel exciting again, and it's just like, yeah. I mean,
This isn't the first time Samsung has just done something to be first.
yes,
That doesn't necessarily continue for years.
Right.
Sometimes they have things that go on for years. Sometimes they just are first, and then within a couple of years, you're like, where is that again?
Let's not forget they were the first to come out with the watch. They had a camera on the strap, for Christ's sake.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah.
So they
And they're still
You're
making
right.
them.
They-
They announced a new one.
and they still make them, and they're really good.
Yeah.
They're good watches. But that first one looks. If you look at it, it's like, what is this thing? But at the time, it was all right. This is interesting. It fits in. It was square instead of circle, and the camera was cool, and the stuff. You could see where it was going, and I think that's a similar thing here.
Yeah.
they seem to be, compared to Apple, a little bit more comfortable with releasing what I guess you would call rough drafts.
Yeah, sure, totally.
Yes, Apple likes to have more. This is the future type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did not have the Fold available for people to look at, but they did have three other phones that.
Three. Well, they came out with 4 other ones. Only 3 are available now.
So three other phones that, Mike, you did get a chance to look at
Yes,
quickly.
I did.
So can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. So there's 3. There's the S10 and the S10 Plus that we know from all the other ones, and then there's a new one called the S10e that is clearly an answer to the iPhone XR. I mean, there's no question because it's flat. It doesn't have the curved edges like the other 2 phones have. There's bezels all around. It has a dual camera instead of a triple camera. Like there's some compromises there, but it's a good phone. It's $750, the exact same price as the XR, and it brings some cool stuff. It has OLED. It has a dual camera, like I said, 5.8-inch screen. And it's a nice device. I have an article posting tomorrow about how it compares to the iPhone XR, and there are pluses and minuses, but it's good. It's a good answer to what Apple's doing. The problem I have with it is the value, because Samsung's phones aren't. When you look at the S10 and you look at the iPhone, they're extremely similar look wise, but Apple has a value that Samsung just cannot convince people that these things are worth $1,000. They just can't. Apple comes out with an $1,100 phone and people say, okay, that's what it is. I'll go buy it. The 10 Plus is
It's
they're
taken
angry,
years
but they
for
do.
Apple. Yeah, Apple had to do that from the start. So starting with the Mac. So that's decades of getting that ingrained into the consumer base.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's right. We've gotten there over time. But Apple is seen as a luxury brand,
Right.
and Samsung isn't. So a $750 phone from Samsung still seems expensive to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people.
Yeah,
Whereas a $750 Apple phone seems.
it didn't help that they took that Galaxy brand and moved it to everything.
Yes.
Like all the way down to their really cheap phones that they just give you when you sign up for a wireless service.
That's a good point.
Like they're all like
Right.
Galaxy A5 or something like that.
Right.
But they use that. They tried to
should
get
have
that
used.
Galaxy brown on everything. They should have kept that for the super high end phones.
Sure.
And now they're Galaxy S, but nobody knows.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
So just to kind of bring it back, what do you think the repercussions are for iPhone users as far as pricing or features goes?
Very little
Yeah, no,
this year for sure, because like it's too late for Apple to like change up the whole iPhone this year. We might see some similar features in the sense that like they went to triple rear cameras. We might see that with the iPhone.
There's the reverse wireless charging,
the
or
reverse-
bilateral wireless charge, whatever they call it. That is rumored to be coming as well.
Yep. So like
Which is a super cool feature. You
if you
can
turn your
literally
phone
put a phone
over,
on top. Yeah.
it's a wireless charger
Sure. Yeah.
for your stuff, which is cool.
That was my favorite feature of the S10, more than all the AI camera stuff. And
That's
like,
one of the
it's
more
just super
practical
cool.
things.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to not use your phone for a while because you're going to wirelessly charge up some other thing.
Yeah,
And
Samsung.
lose
in
your
a
battery
couple
life on your
hours.
phone.
Well,
but
yeah,
you
that's the idea, though.
Like if you put them together, I was able to still use it, holding them together. But I was able to still use it, so it can be used.
Right.
It's cool,
It's
but it's
not
another one that
comfortable.
strikes me as another one of those selling point features.
Yeah.
It's a cool.
It's cool, but it's not a selling
legitimately
point.
cool, useful feature that will come in handy. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Well, the
A
idea is that,
secondary front camera.
yeah, because Samsung also came out with their own earbuds
Yes.
that compete with the
AirPods.
Yeah.
AirPods.
Another new generation. They've
Right.
had some for a while.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
but-
they're a little bit smaller. They have that wireless case now,
Yeah.
just like the AirPods.
So
and
if your earbuds were running out of juice, you could, in a jiffy, use your
And-
phone to charge them.
I think they're cheaper. They're $119.
I didn't see the price
like
of them, but I heard they were cheaper. Yeah.
you get a free one with every Galaxy Fold.
And what else? Oh, so and the
5G.
the 5G version of the Galaxy S10, which is huge.
6.7 inches.
Yeah,
It's
it adds a time of flight rear camera, which is
the time of flight's in the front. It
You
adds
sure?
a fourth 3D camera in the back.
That's what I mean.
Sorry, it's not. It adds a depth sensing camera in the back. It's not the 3D camera's in the front. It's not in the back.
I read it the other way. I read that
Maybe
they
I'm
have
wrong.
an RGB camera in the front that's a depth camera. It's an 8 megapixel depth camera, kind of like the HTC used to do. And
Maybe
then there's a
I-
time of flight camera in the back for AR stuff, which is new for them and would be also one of those things Apple's rumored to be doing, maybe not this year, maybe next year.
Yep.
That's one of those things where I kind of don't know why Samsung's doing it, in the sense that there's no
There's You were
ecosystem
gonna
for
say
it. Like,
And there's no, from what I was told, it's strictly for portraits and AR. There's no Face ID clone.
right.
Yeah, there's
So,
like nothing like that in there. I was looking at
That's what I would want. I think it's on the front, but again, I don't remember for sure.
Right.
But if let's say there is one on the front, that's what I want it for. I want it for unlocking. I don't care about
Yeah. Well, so the
an emoji or any
the
of that crap.
S10
Like, that's
Plus
not what
and
I
I think the 5G version have a thing on the front for portrait modes and stuff, and it's an RGB depth sensing, what they call a depth camera, but it's a specialized RGB camera.
The
It's not a
S10
time
Plus definitely has has a depth sensing, but not 3D.
Yes,
The S10 5G
right.
is the only one that has a time of flight camera. And like I said, I don't remember if it's on the front or the back. I thought it was on the front. But
From what I
but the other ones are
understand
not.
of Google's AR APIs and stuff like that, there's nothing for that for developers yet. So either that's
Not really, yeah.
still coming, or it's going to
Yeah.
be like, what's going to be the developer ecosystem for this or something. It's not going to be like when Apple does it and ARKit supports this for everything everywhere already. Millions of developers already up to speed on this. So, I'm not sure about that one.
Google has that AR Core, which
Right.
is, it's a little bit fuzzy with what it can and can't do, but it certainly doesn't target those types of cameras specifically.
Yeah, not yet, but maybe
Yeah,
that's what, maybe before this thing comes out, that's going to be an announcement. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, that 5G phone, so it has 6.7-inch display. It has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. It has 12 gigs of RAM. It is just a monster.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And no price announced or release date on that yet.
I was told Q2.
Yeah.
So
I saw
that's
that.
May through March through June or something.
Everything else is coming March 8th, I think, is
Yeah.
when they actually
Sounds
ship.
right.
Pre-should start tomorrow, March 8th, and the Galaxy Fold is April 26th.
Okay.
So
Save up your pennies. please.
save up your pennies. Mike will be working on coverage of those Samsung phones for our sister publication, PC World, and I'm sure he'll have some coverage on how they compare to Apple products as well. So
So
Take everybody off on both sides.
Is he a Android shill, Samsung shill, or
An
Apple shill?
shill.
You
Yeah.
know, get in that conversation.
Yeah.
It depends on who you're talking to. I'm a different one every day. Dan.
So earlier this morning, before Samsung had their big show, there was a report by Bloomberg by Mark Gurman, man known for his for breaking some Apple news.
It's little birds in there.
Yeah, it's so he posted a story early this morning about how what's going on with Apple's Marzipan project. So if people are unfamiliar, Apple last WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference, talked about how they weren't merging iOS and macOS. They wanted to clarify, though, that they are working on a project that allows essentially a developer to be able to write once and then publish the app to iOS and macOS. So,
well, you save your UI work. UIKit API, they're bringing that to the Mac instead of the Mac UI APIs. You'd still have to write some Mac specific code, but a lot of your design work and everything, that's all the same API.
Yeah, and they're calling this Project Marzipan. And so we heard about it at WWDC. Then we haven't heard much about it since then. But Mark Gurman came out with the story this morning, offering a little more detail about it, saying that this WWDC, they're hoping to introduce a development kit that developers can use to help bring their iPad apps over to the Mac. And then next year, they're hoping to introduce a development kit to bring your iPhone apps to the Mac. And it's a little bit more of a challenge because the iPhone has a smaller UI. Is that
it's like the whole surface area is a lot smaller.
Yeah, because it's smaller screen, so they have to figure out a way to be able to carry that over. And then by 2021, they will have a way for developers to create what they're calling a single binary. So you write so you create one app, and that one app works on the iPhone, iPad, and Mac.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that because there's a lot of cool apps on my iPhone that I was like, man, this would be really great on Mac, and I don't have it. Yeah.
I really hope that before that happens, they at least unify the stores.
Yeah. Gurman said he said that could be a possibility that as a result of this, they would only have one store.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure when you publish one binary, I'm not going to have to rebuy it everywhere. But even before that happens, even if you have separate versions of your app, I'd love for developers to have the ability, anyway, if they want, to sell me one version. Just like there are apps now where they have separate iPad and iPhone apps. For separate prices, or there are some apps where you buy it once and there's an iPad version and an iPhone version. You get them both. That doesn't extend to the Mac, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
See, but when I have to wonder how developers will feel. Let's say two examples that come to mind: Fantastical 2 and Things 3, both apps I use on a regular basis. Like the iPhone versions are like $9, but on the Mac they do the exact same thing and they're like $50.
Yep.
Yeah. So
and if you want, you can still do that. I think Things is a good example of. It's an app where there's an iPhone version, there's a more expensive, different iPad version, and there's an even more expensive Mac version. Should they want to, you can keep doing that.
Okay.
But just giving app developers the ability to, hey, we know what your Apple ID is.
This all seems good in theory, but I mean, isn't this just going to end up being a dumbing down of what we know of the Mac?
I don't know.
We're going to have all
I've heard some people worried about that. I don't necessarily see that. Yeah. I mean, it would almost be, would every app have to be this way, or could some people just say, this
I mean,
is
I
a
think
Mac app?
it's almost worse if it isn't. Then you're getting, some are, some aren't. Like, for example, I don't run whatever the latest. What are we up to now? What's the latest Mac OS? Yeah,
Mojave.
I don't have that on my computer, but I've used the news and the other Marzipan apps, and they're they don't feel like Mac apps.
They're not
they
great.
feel like iPhone apps on the Mac.
Yeah.
I like when I run Android apps on my Chromebook. It's not the great. Like I'll do it, but it's not ideal.
I think it's huge for them just because if you look at the size of the markets, like there are more people who are used to iOS apps than are used to Mac apps, and I think it can only help sell people on the Mac if the things they're familiar with are there, and they're there in a way that they're familiar with them. But I think there needs to be a lot of work on macOS to make it not look and feel so different. Like macOS needs, the Chrome of macOS kind of needs to get closer to iOS, and iOS to macOS. They need to kind of meet in the middle a little.
Or
Why
something?
not come out with a Chrome-like
Ugh.
OS?
Please don't.
Does,
Please don't.
that does those two things. That takes the iOS familiarity and the semi power of a Mac, part of the power of the Mac, and fuses it into a laptop-like device that does both things.
I'm sorry, I don't know how extreme you want to take that, but I personally think, as far as usability goes, you can talk about, compatibility and all that stuff. Mac OS craps over Windows and stuff, and I don't want something so simple as
It doesn't have to be
Chrome.
simple, and it doesn't have to. Chrome, I mean, I use Chrome. I use my Pixel Book every day.
I
It's
used it
awesome.
for years too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wouldn't use it for work.
It doesn't have to be dumbed down. I mean, what about the iPad Pro? Is the iPad Pro dumbed down?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Not well. Compared to the Mac, sure.
Yeah, that's
But
what
you
we
can-
mean.
right.
Like, yeah, I need to plug in a hard drive and read files.
I'm not saying to get rid of the Mac. I'm saying that if you're going to start pushing all this stuff to the Mac,
Yeah.
with the hopes of turning the Mac into a device that more iPhone users will be comfortable with,
Yeah.
why
I
not
have,
leave it and come out with a middle, some kind of a hybrid middle?
I have a great product for you. It's called Windows 7. You can have tiles, and there you go.
I think they're going to end up pissing off Mac users and iPhone users together.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I'm not sure how.
Yes. I'll buy that.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, Apple is generally good with transitions, so I'll reserve judgment on that. They take things slowly and they do things at a good pace, and we'll see. But on paper, when I was reading that report, I kind of cringed a little bit. Like the John Grubers and the Jason Snells of the world are going to be like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
There are a lot of hardcore Mac users that stick with Apple. There are tons of them.
But
And if you start bringing all that to the Mac and start kind of changing what the core of the Mac is, I don't know.
I think
Well, that's
it
the thing.
matters whether or not the core apps become iPhone apps. Like if I launch
Right.
Safari and stuff like that, am I looking at iPad Safari or I'm looking at Mac Safari?
Yeah.
Like we need to make sure that things that want to feel like laptop apps and desktop apps and
Right.
stuff can feel like that. And then also for apps that are never going to make it to the desktop or have a desktop,
Right.
a quote desktop version, you can run that iPad app
Yeah.
on your Mac.
And see, we're mainly talking about, Apple's apps. Okay, Things 3 is too simple to use as an example. Let's go to Fantastical 2. That's a pretty complex app, and it's a calendar. And the
Complex.
Mac,
It is.
It is.
For
It's-
what it
it's
is.
a-
yeah.
for what it is, it's pretty complex. But yeah, it's basically the same. And they have managed to make that where it feels comparable but very fully featured on both devices. So we're laughing at what Apple can do with it, like with the stocks and the voice recorder apps and stuff. But I think that good developers like them would be able to do good stuff with a system like this.
What do you think about pricing? Because is the idea that you would buy it once and you would have it for all your devices, or because people are willing to spend obviously a lot more on a Mac full-fledged app,
Right.
versus a more simplified entry level one that might come on iOS.
I would think that it would be like it is with the iPhone and iPad now, where developers have that option. It's not forced on anyone. You can some apps have separate iPhone and iPad versions at separate prices. Some are buy it once and get an iPhone and an iPad app, and they even may even look and operate a little differently, on the iPad versus the iPhone. But you bought it once and you get it both places. As long as they let developers have that choice, then that's fine. And then a developer can decide whether it wants to add value by saying, look, you're buying it once and you get it for all your devices. Or if they want to say, oh, no, the Mac version costs more, they can do that.
We could also see maybe some kind of subscription models slip in there.
There's going to be a lot more of that.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way the developer gets continuous revenue, and then you end up actually paying more
Yes.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
long run. But
I pay for a Ulysses subscription, and I wonder if I should.
That's the way it's going. Is they're really
Yeah.
trying to make
Yeah.
that more of a thing.
right, so we'll see what happens with WWDC. Some other stuff that could happen at WWDC or throughout this year is a lot of hardware developments. Ming-Chi Kuo, an analyst who's surprisingly been very accurate with his predictions in the past, came out with a report earlier this week and talked about some of the things that Apple could possibly be doing. A lot of it was on the Mac side, surprisingly.
Certainly the surprising stuff was on the Mac side. Yeah.
Among the things that he said for the Mac was that Apple could possibly be phasing out the 15-inch MacBook Pro for a new 16-inch model. And then also maybe introducing a new 13-inch laptop that has 32 gigabytes of RAM support. It's limited right now to 16 gigabytes.
Yeah.
So
I assume that both of the 16-inch and the 13-inch would usher in a whole new design language, I would think.
Because you focus on the all-new design with the 13, but it has to apply to both of them.
Well, the 16,
Yeah, well,
the 16 is the one
he said it was a
Oh,
new
sorry, I had it backwards.
13-inch. He said new 13-inch with 32. I don't think
Right.
Apple would just come out with the same
I agree.
MacBook.
I think they would. I bet they would. I wouldn't be surprised.
Like
Unless
the iPhone
new
10
design
and
is
iPhone 8.
like the way it's a new design this year where it's the design that they have now. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
They keep coming out with new designs that are not really new. They like change a few ports, maybe a tiny bit thinner. It's still the silver
the touch bar
slab.
was the big change. That's
Yeah,
the most
still the silver slab with the bezels that are the same way and the same black keyboard and the same trackpad. Like I'm not. Is it going to suddenly be like matte black with like straight edges like or sharp corners like the Razer notebooks, or
Right.
look like the iPad Pro's new design language?
when I read a 16-inch, I imagined like an iPad Pro type bezel, like a very curved edges, curved corners of the screen, very slim bezels, and uniform all around.
on the front, but the
Mac
sides,
front.
not those flat sides that it's still going to be those scallop sides that iPads
Yeah,
have.
probably. I mean,
that Macs have.
it's kind of flat. So yeah, probably.
So yeah,
No,
I mean, we'll see
but
how
I-
much they mean by.
I can't imagine him coming out with the MacBook Pro that's an inch bigger and looks exactly the same as the 15-inch one. That would be weird to me.
Yes.
I think just shrinking the bezels pretty much gives you 16 inches.
Well, yeah,
on a
but
15
that
inch.
would,
Yeah.
that would precipitate a whole change in, I would think.
I know a lot of
If
people
you're gonna
want
shrink
it.
the bezels, you would assume they'll do more to it than just that.
But I would kind of like that because, the 15-inch, I know a lot of people are really excited about the 16 one, but it's too big. Yeah,
Well,
I
if
hate
it's
lugging
the
that thing
same
around.
form factor or similar form factor, and they just have a bigger screen.
That's what I meant. I like that idea that he was just saying. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine they would make a bigger one just to have a bigger one.
Yeah.
My guess is they would find a way to put that much screen into a very similar size.
I guess
But
I'm
it
the
is,
only
it is
one.
exciting that they're considering that, because I had the 17-inch way back when and I loved it.
Oh, I was about to say, I'm the only one who wants a bigger laptop. My favorite all-time MacBook
loved
Pro
it.
is the 17-inch.
I bought that thing on day one and I adored it until it died. I mean, it didn't fit in any of my backpacks. It gave me like also. I mean, it was super heavy, but I loved it.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, Quo also says that Apple's working on a 31.6-inch external display with a 6K
6K.
resolution.
6K by 3K. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So
That sounds about right. If you think
Yeah.
about the pixel density of a 5K iMac,
yeah,
and you extend it out to that size, then you
Right.
get what a slightly off 6K by 3K. They have the regular scaled resolution for 5K iMac is like 1800 by no, it's
18 by
something
12.
something 100 by 1800. I can't remember. Like
I can't
20,
remember.
but it's a 2-to-1 of a 6K by 3K kind of resolution.
Yeah.
So it would just be 4x that. So it seems to make sense. We know they're making a new Pro display. They said the other year when they said, we're working on a new Mac Pro, they said, and a new Pro display.
Right.
So that it would make sense for it to be
Yeah.
this. I'm glad that it's not just the 5K iMac display.
Yes.
Right, in a separate case,
In a separate case.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're doing something else with that, but I want to see them do more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, part of that interested me is they said a mini LED-like design, which is not micro LEDs. Those are separate technology entirely. But that means small RGB backlights,
Mm-hmm.
which give you a really wide color gamut. It gives you lots of lighting zones that let
Yeah.
you do local dimming to do like really high contrast ratio. And LED backlights can strobe to give you, depending on what your front panel technology is, you might be able to get higher refresh rates.
Right, right.
Now, getting high refresh rates on a 6K display is not something you'd see a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But TVs will do things like insert gray frames and stuff to reduce flicker.
Yeah.
So they can do cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would love to see some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So we have
There was that weird rumor a couple of weeks ago that they were coming out with some kind of a gaming service, so a high refresh rate would work well with gaming.
Yeah.
So we have a couple questions. First, since we were kind of like combining the idea of marzipan and Mac rumors, would be what's the possibility and when do you think Apple would move to running their own chips? And then also, has there been any word, when we talk about kind of full-fledged apps on iOS about Photoshop? Is there been updates to that?
Just that it's coming out.
Yeah,
for
no
sure.
Yeah,
updates on the
they
Photoshop.
haven't said when, but it's definitely that full, that real deal Photoshop. When did they say just random, like
I think it's gonna
vague
be spring.
2019?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So,
As
yeah,
for-
I mean, that's,
yeah.
we saw a full demo of it during the iPad event, so it's definitely coming.
Yeah. But it's been quiet since then. Nothing
Yeah.
new to report. As far as the
Can I say that marzipan's like the worst code name ever? Like,
Yeah.
well, you're not. It's,
like
one of those
this-
things we're not
it's
supposed
just
to.
like spongy, gross thing that nobody wants.
I
to
always
touch.
think of Homestar Runner.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that's what I do. Yeah, we're not supposed to know it.
Oh, Apple knows. We found out about all their code names.
As far as them doing their own chips, I mean,
There was that
It's-
report earlier this year, or maybe late last
think it
year,
was
that
last
they
year,
were
yeah.
working on it, on like introducing it in a MacBook in 2020,
Yeah.
like the low end, and then gradually.
but it's all really
Putting it in
iffy
line.
at this part.
Right.
At this point, like I don't think we'll see anything this year.
yeah,
And if we do see something, it'll start to go through. It's not like suddenly all the Macs will just turn
right.
around.
They'll gradually.
But I think
It'll
they'll
be the.
gradually
I mean, the
start to-
MacBook is the one that. What has it been, like 2 years now? So that
Yeah.
would probably be the one that would get it, and maybe the end of this year, maybe next year, if they were to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the smart machine.
Yeah, they're not going to start with this Mac with the Mac Pro.
And
Yeah.
considering Quo's rumors, if they are as accurate as they probably are, yeah, I think that kind of information would have made it into those leaks.
I think so
honestly.
too. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, in fact, he said a processor for both, a new A processor for both iPads. So he would have said an A processor for the Mac
Yeah.
too, for
Yeah.
sure. If that was coming down the pike.
Yeah, speaking of the iPad, Quo also talked about possible iPad rumors, and like that the new iPad this year will get a new processor. He thinks it'll be called the A13X.
Which is pretty. It's a pretty safe bet. I could have made that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then he talked about
And,
the new iPad Mini possibly happening.
yeah.
it's
And I think
sounding
there was
more and more like that's just going to be the Mini we know now with the new processor.
there was some other rumor that leaked out that
The 10-inch or the 9.7-inch iPad is going to get an 11-inch screen or
Right.
something
Right.
close to that. That would
Half
be
inch
interesting.
boost to 10.2 inches.
the mini is going to be what the mini we have now with like they moved the microphone and that's
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
And
it's like I mean, I guess if you start redesigning it, then the pricing. Like if you give me a
Yes.
Mini
Yeah.
with an A12X and make it $250, they'll sell those.
well, it's not going to have the A12X, but
Or
it may have the
whatever,
it may have
12
the
or 11.
A12 or an A11.
yeah, whatever
but
it is,
it's
as long as it's better
still-
than what did it have now? The A7 or something?
Yeah,
Or
it's
the
way
8?
behind.
Yeah,
So
way.
if they price it right, it could be a good thing for the people who want that.
Right.
And if the 329 iPad goes to 11 inches and loses the home button and gets like an iPad Pro style for that same price, man, that's going to be a sweet
Oh yeah,
machine.
Yes.
yeah. They'll sell a lot of those.
Tons
Especially
of them.
if it
unless
keeps
they
pencil support.
say, "Oh, now it's $500," which they could.
No, the price will go up, but even that, because why wouldn't the price not go up? Everything, but still, I think still it's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean they can't go much more than $399. $349 and $399 makes the most sense if it's going to increase.
No, $499. It's gonna be
If
$500.
it goes up to $499, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's gonna be
That's a
$500.
$170 increase. That's like
Yeah,
50%.
why not? Okay, but it has Face ID now, and it looks different.
Right.
Quo also had some predictions for the iPhone, saying that he thought that the Lightning connector will be sticking around.
Yeah.
That's my guess too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. I just want them to make the other end USB-C
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
and give me a decent charger in the box.
Mm.
Considering no Apple products have USB-A on them, why the hell do they give
That's
us a
just
charger?
it.
And a dongle.
Other new features would be an ultra wideband wireless radio for indoor mapping.
Yep. That
gimmicky,
I
but
bet that's
that's cool.
coming because if you've been reading about that, it's been one of those things that Apple and a couple other people have been working on for a few years, and we keep hearing about how they're coming in next year's phones, and they kind of never show up. But the cool thing about what that would let you do is it's kind of like iBeacons, except way more precise.
Okay.
So you could get really precise sort of indoor positioning stuff, and that features into AR and a lot of other stuff. So
Yeah, Google added that in Android Pie as well, so it's definitely going to be
Yeah.
it's like the next step in all this stuff.
yeah, all the hardware's coming this year from various radio manufacturers and stuff. So
Other features would include a frosted glass rear case and reverse wireless charging that we were talking
are
about.
they going to make a matte black iPhone?
Matt,
Hey man, the Google Pixel 3 is frosted glass, and it's nice.
Yeah,
is it?
I want
Yeah, very nice.
I want a matte black iPhone. I might not use a
It's
case.
sweet, yeah.
So,
Wasn't the iPhone 7? Didn't they have a matte black version of that? That was the one.
It's not really.
was it
matte.
jet black? And
It was called.
There
well-
was the jet one was the glossy one. Then there was another one.
Because I had one that was my 7 Plus was kind of like that dull black.
There was a space gray and a jet black, wasn't there? But it
Yeah.
wasn't as glossy, but it wasn't
Yes,
like
exactly.
frosted matte color.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, frosted glass on an iPhone would be nice. Apple would do that nice.
so there are also some rumors about the Apple Watch. This would be kind of more minor upgrade because the Apple Watch got its major upgrade last year.
Yeah.
So, Quo was saying that there would be the ECG support would be expanded to additional countries. And
Yep.
It would have a new ceramic casing, probably. So nothing
Darn.
major happening with the
Yeah,
Apple
I'm
Watch.
sure there'll be a new processor in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
An S5,
another app or
right.
something, and
Yeah.
better battery life, maybe. It's an S year for the Apple Watch, if you will.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then to kind of wrap things up from Quo's report, he says that Apple's possibly working on a new iPod Touch. So
I mean, I guess if you're going to
That's-
come out with the new Mini, you might as well come out with the new iPod.
Yeah.
That was-
So we're going that
Yeah, I
direction.
think that's
why-
the second rumor of that where they said,
Yeah,
yeah. And it was suspected that Apple was going to pitch it as sort of a gaming device.
right.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right.
Let me tell you, man, if they came out with an iPod Touch that looked like an iPhone XS, they would sell a zillion of them. They won't, but that would sell like crazy.
Yeah. And then the AirPower seems to possibly still exist.
Still kicking around.
That could actually ship sometime this year.
It could.
Yeah, that and the new with the new AirPods with the wireless case. I'm assuming that they will ship together because
Yeah.
that was another one that was announced way back when, and they never gave it to us because they don't make a charging pad that supports it.
It would make total sense for that.
We actually did a Twitter poll. I actually meant to talk about this in the Mac section, but we asked which Mac rumor are you most excited about? Of the four,
Can I guess?
Go ahead. Why don't you go take a guess?
The modular Mac Pro #1.
Actually, the modular Mac Pro was number 2 in our poll. So number one was the 16-inch MacBook Pro with 35% of the vote. 27% of the vote went to the modular Mac Pro. 23% went to the 31-inch 6K display. Kind of surprising.
I was surprised that.
Yeah, I
wasn't
was
more
surprised
exciting.
about that.
And then 15% went to the 13-inch MacBook Pro with 32 gigabytes of RAM. So
I'm trying to temper my expectations for that 16-inch MacBook. I think it's going to be essentially like the 15-inch one with thinner bezels around the screen and it's still going to have the like 3rd-gen butterfly keyboard and the same port issues
How
that we have
could
today.
they really give us the same keyboard?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah, like,
they could. Yes, they could.
I hope to God no,
Like
but
they've taken so much heat for that.
but
So much so that they added a membrane to it
Yeah.
because they were getting so many complaints about it.
right, and the membrane one's the one we'll get, and that's it. Like I don't know. I hope it's not. I hope they do more than that, but I
don't
worry
think
that
so.
that is what we're gonna get.
You know, it's just like I said in my article today. It was, you know, you hear so many writers talk about how that was the perfect keyboard and everything, and I'm really surprised that that's not something they listen to. It's just like they're like da 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 da.
And you know, under Tim Cook, Apple has been far more receptive to consumer criticism, if you will. Like they've done things that Steve Jobs would have basically said, "No, we're not doing that."
Not in that case.
They
Yeah,
listen.
not in that case.
And we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
We'll have a betting
I
round.
don't think
once
they'll
we
ever
get the-
say we went back to the old keyboard because that's
No,
sort of
no.
admits
They'll
a
just call it
mistake.
like the Butterfly
They'll
2
call it
or
something
something.
That's
like
why I
that.
suggested a hybrid in the article.
They'll
because-
call it something else.
Yeah, they would allow them wiggle room there. Yeah,
Maybe they'll make it a $300 option. You can get the old butterfly keyboard.
It'll have no travel. It'll just be
screen.
you
All
just have a
haptic.
giant.
haptic,
It's like
yeah.
a touch bar this big with a keyboard printed on it, and yeah, it's all haptic.
So they'll make it worse.
It adds $800 to the price.
Be the world's worst.
And
I'm
then,
sure there's a prototype somewhere in Johnny Ives' lab that's just the bottom, it's just a touchsure. I'm
Yeah.
sure
Right.
there's.
Yeah.
it looks beautiful. It's practically
Yeah.
unusable.
It's just
You have to constantly look at what you're doing
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
looking at the screen, but it looks awesome.
And see that's a problem with the touch bar that I don't think enough people talk about. That it makes you look at your screen. I mean your keyboard, excuse me, not the screen.
Yeah, you have to look away.
Yeah, I still like every now and again I'll notice something. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do that, and then the next time I'll forget.
Right.
Like it's just not something my brain has been trained. I've been using this thing for 2 years now, and I do not ever consider it as an option on my Mac. Never,
Yeah.
unless I need escape. Then I always hit it.
A fair amount of people commented none of the above in response to our Twitter poll.
Not very excited about
So,
any
which,
of it.
you know,
I'm sorry, guys. There's some exciting stuff on that Mac.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see the Mac Pro. I really want to see. This is now 2.5 years in the making. What have
Yeah.
you been doing? I want to see what they're doing.
That's actually an exciting little list there. Now it might be disappointing, but the actual options are kind of
Yeah,
exciting.
I'm going to be sad that I can't spend $4,000 to buy it, but I want to see what they do.
Right.
I'm really anxious to see what they do.
How much do you think it's going to be? It's not. It can't start at 4,000.
It'll start at
it'll be
$29.99.
I was thinking 5. but,
16-inch MacBook Pro.
Entry? No, the Mac Pro.
Mac
Oh, the
Pro.
Mac Pro.
I think it'll be about maybe 3,500 the most. I mean, 5 seems like a lot. for
Entry
not having
the
monitors.
starting
beginning.
lowest price $29.99.
yeah, I would like for it to
Oh,
start at 3.
I was going to say the starting price at $33.99.
Jeez,
So
this all feels crazy to me.
Yeah, well, we all.
Well, it is
we're
crazy.
agreeing
It is
it's not
crazy.
gonna
Yes,
be-
it is.
it is
It's bonkers.
right because the beginning price now is $29.99, and that's for what, a 6-year-old
Yeah,
machine?
see, that's why I was thinking to 5. Yeah.
Yeah, 35 then for sure.
Well, it's 6 years old design. They did upgrade it.
Barely.
Right, they
Processor
upgraded, what,
points.
2 years ago?
It still doesn't have USB-C or anything, but they did put a better processor in it.
But I think it's going to be cheaper to manufacture. Like even if it has newer, more expensive parts, I think they're going to make it a little more manufacturable.
Yeah, especially
Right,
since it's not going. Hopefully, it's not going for the this is an art piece that should go into MoMA.
Well, no, they will. No, it'll definitely be designed to be put on the top of the desk and not underneath it for sure.
Right.
But
not,
I do. Also,
not
I
this
also think
circular.
No, it won't be
completely
that.
That's what I'm
impossible
going
to.
for. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that the market for it is probably in the 3,000 to 4,000 range.
I agree.
If it's 1,200, they're not going to get many more people to buy it than if it was 3,000. I mean, that's the market. What I want Apple to do is come out with retro devices. If they came out with the iMac G4, I would buy that tomorrow. Like, I'm a big sneaker fan, and Nike comes out with all these retro shoes, and people go crazy for them. Come out with retro Macs.
You might
That
be
would
on
be
something.
awesome.
like a Core i7 and an SE box.
Special
Yeah.
edition,
Yes.
This is a good age for retro
go
the
stuff.
classic.
Nuts over those. Nuts. If it was like, you're right, like new parts inside old chassis.
I agree. You might be onto something there.
Somebody get me in touch with Tim Cook.
They could sell it as a limited edition thing where there's only like 10,000 of them.
Yes.
Right.
And they're numbered and they're signed.
Kind of like with the 20th anniversary Mac.
Yeah.
Yes.
They could do that.
Yeah.
So, well, that just about does it for this week's episode of the Macworld podcast. I'd like to thank Mike Simon on the remote. Thanks, Mike.
And up late, people. This is
Up
past my
late.
bedtime.
He's on the East Coast, so he's working overtime. So he had a busy day today. So I'd like to thank Jason and Leif
Thank you.
in the
Thanks.
studio. I'd like to thank Dan, our producer.
You're
Thank
always
you, Dan.
welcome.
And I'd like to thank you, the audience. Thanks for tuning in. Our regular time for the Macworld podcast is Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. We moved today's show back because of the Samsung announcements. We wanted to be able to talk about them. But we usually broadcast on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific on Twitter and YouTube.
But not next week.
Not next week. Next week,
No show.
There will be no, we're taking a
Oh.
little break.
Oh, yeah.
Video team is all off.
Video-
Yes,
Yeah,
we have
video
no
team
video.
is-
The most, see, that's why he's the most important man in
Right.
the room.
We literally can't do it without you.
So next week,
I'll just teach you guys how to. It's just pushing buttons. It's really easy. We can hire a monkey to do my job. Most important
Can
monkey.
we, though?
The most important monkey in the room.
But can we hire a monkey?
right. The monkey can't read
Yeah.
the Twitter feed, though.
That's about what Twitter is these days.
Yeah, Twitter's like 80% monkeys. Man.
So we won't have a show next week, but we'll have a show the week after. Keep an eye out on macworld.com as to what the topics will be. We'll tweet them out and we'll post an article on our website. So, but yeah, no show next week, but try again the week after. So, I'd like to thank for
You
everyone in the
already
studio.
did that.
I'd like to
Thank
say
you.
for everyone in the studio, thanks for joining us, and see you later.
Later.